Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharni Visesa Samyavadi Pushkachari Satai Panchakalpa Tudubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the introduction. It's nice to see you after a month or so, giving classes. Like you say, I'm here in Vrindavan. Actually, Vrindavan now hopefully is our home. We'll see how that goes. I left, I guess, Bhaktivedanta Manor 10 years ago. I left there. So, of course, I spent 5 years in Hawaii. I'm the, what do they call it? The zonal supervisor in Hawaii, although I haven't been there for some time now. Anyway, I appreciate you asking me to speak. I've been thinking, of course, like all of us, I've been thinking a lot about Bhakti Charu Maharaj. I can tell you, going back to early on, I guess the first time I met Maharaj was in 1977. You know, I'm sure all of you know his history coming to Srila Prabhupada at that time. And as you had said, I traveled with Srila Prabhupada as his servant up until the middle of 1975. So then when I saw Maharaj, it was right here in Vrindavan when I came here in September. I was temple president in Hawaii at that time. And like everyone, of course, Prabhupada had been here for several months. He had been in Vrindavan at that time, not well. And I finally came. I took a trip from Hawaii in the end of August 1977, and I spent a few weeks here. Upendra was here at that time, my godbrother, who had been Prabhupada's servant at different times, and he was with him 24 hours a day with many others. And of course, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, who had recently come, and as we know, Prabhupada very quickly gave him first, second initiation, and then shortly after that gave him sannyas. So that was the situation with Maharaj. Prabhupada was very happy to bring him on board. And so from that time, as I said, I moved to the Philadelphia area in around 1984. And actually, when I really got in touch with Maharaj was in the 90s. I don't know, some of you may recall, 1996, that was the 100th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's appearance, was 1996. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he was very instrumental at that time. So this was 25 years ago. He had galvanized many of the GBC, and he wanted to bring back all the disconnected devotees, his godbrothers and godsisters, who, of course, over the years from the 80s and on, many of them had not frequented the temples, let's say, very much, Prabhupada's temples, the ISKCON temples. And he started a program, and he engaged many others in it. At that time, of course, computer was there, internet was there, not to the extent it is today, but I remember I have my America Online account, AOL, which was one of the only ones at that time. But he wanted to reach out, Maharaj wanted to reach out to the devotees and somehow just welcome them back for so many varied reasons. And I was on my own at that time. Of course, I had a business. As you said, I had 3 children, a wife I was raising at that time. They were all teenagers going through those years. And I lived about 45 minutes away from the Philadelphia temple. And I didn't go there very often. And I also started writing my book at that time. But I was feeling also very much disconnected from a lot of things in ISKCON. I had pretty much left the shelter of ISKCON 1983. And so now it was literally 13 years later. I was living as a grahasta, had a business, had wife, children, mortgages, things that many householders get into at that period of life. And what he did was I found it very appealing. And actually it caused me to come to Vrindavan. I hadn't been to Vrindavan in some years. In 15 years or so, I had been here once or twice. But I made an effort, and I actually came back to Vrindavan, came the next year, and it was really an impetus for me to do my book, to start writing for my book. And also I started traveling a little bit. It was after coming here and speaking with him, and then I met Radhanath Maharaj, who engaged me in his program in Vrindavan. And then I met Niranjan Maharaj, who started asking me to come to the festivals, the Ukraine festivals, every year. But all of it had to do really with, the beginning was with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, because he was genuinely concerned in seeing that Prabhupada's disciples were cared for in the way, and of course in the way that Prabhupada had cared for us. We wanted to see that this goes on. I say this because recently my connection with Maharaj has been in Atlanta. Some of you may know, in Atlanta, of course, Jayapataka Maharaj made the Panihati festival very famous in Atlanta for many years now, 25 years or so. And just this last year, for last Janmashtami, and a few months before that Panihati festival, I was in Atlanta. And of course, I was in Atlanta along with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, because Jayapataka Maharaj wasn't traveling. Of course, Atlanta has a very big Bengali community. So they were very eager for Bhakti Charu Maharaj to come to Atlanta. So for the last 2 years of Panihati festival and this last Janmashtami festival, I've actually had the good fortune of spending a week in Atlanta with Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj. And somehow or other, of course not somehow or other, based on our service to Prabhupada, we've become very close over the time, especially in the last few years. And this last time at the Janmashtami festival, he called a meeting. We were all taking prasadam together most days. Some of his disciples were cooking. So the one day, it was myself was there, Teja Prakash, what's his name? That devotee. Siki Mahiti, my godbrother Siki Mahiti was there. And Bhakti Charu Maharaj was sitting at the table, and he's looking, and he said, I'm thinking next year we should put on a festival in the USA. He said we need to find a place, just like they do the Sadhu Sangha festival. They rent that whole place for the weekend. He said we need to find a place, and we need to invite all of Prabhupada's disciples to come together. So this was literally over 20 years later. And Maharaj wanted to do the same thing. He wanted to just see his godbrothers and godsisters, especially those who, for a variety of reasons, weren't feeling very connected with others. And especially at this time, since we're all, you mentioned my birthday, tomorrow is June 29th, I'll be 69 years old tomorrow. So we're all at that stage now. You can remember, I keep thinking 69 years old, that's when Prabhupada left India to go to America. He was 69 years old. And of course, what Prabhupada did from that time on was indescribable. It was a miracle. And so I see with Maharaj, he sees the necessity, and it is very important. His desire was very important to get together with his God brothers and God sisters, because as is very evident, we're not going to be here forever. You know, I was with Prabhupada when I was 20 years old. I was a servant at 20 years old, 21, 22, 23 years old. And he was in his 70s. Actually, when I joined Prabhupada in 72, he was 76. So just like Bhakti Charu Maharaj now, will be 75 years old, I think, very shortly. At that time, when I was very young, daily Prabhupada would be telling us about this material world, the situation in the material world. It wasn't surprising, so much so, he would remind us very often that at any time he could be gone. And he was handing all the service over to us to continue as ISKCON society. It wasn't something practically I could understand even at that time. Even coming here in September 1977, of course, I spent every day, I was with Prabhupada all day for those 2 weeks I was here. And even seeing him, having not eating for weeks and weeks, months, seeing his weight go down. You can see videos, you can see photographs of him. I actually don't even like to see them. I always like to remember Prabhupada when I was with him, 73, 74, 75 in his preaching. But seeing that, and at that time I was 25 years old, I still couldn't understand what was right in front of me. And that was that Prabhupada was leaving. He had been leaving for weeks, for months. And being young and kind of fearless and very healthy and strong and energetic, you just don't see what's right in front of you. You know, Prabhupada spent his whole time with us trying to tell us our whole business here in this material world is to get out of here. He gave us everything. He gave us all the knowledge, all the service, everything and all we needed to do to finish our business in the material world and get out. He gave to us. But I was sitting in front of him every day. I was massaging him with Upendra. At that time, we would give him dry massage with baby powder, talcum powder. And you see, we had the little massage stones that we would be using. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj was there. It was wonderful because, of course, he was Bengali. He could speak Bengali to Prabhupada. They could translate together. He was cooking for Prabhupada. He knew what Prabhupada liked, even though he was hardly eating. But Prabhupada was always telling us what our future was, you know, and how quickly it was upon us. Imagine, for me, that was almost 50 years ago. So then I saw Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, as I said, in Philadelphia, where I was staying. I went to a meeting at that time. And I had a very nice, it was my very first serious discussion with Maharaj. Yeah, we were talking about the society. Now, again, this was like 1996. So 1996 meant I was 45 years old. And there were different devotees that were there, second generation devotees. And I remember one devotee, he was a brahmachari, a young brahmachari, disciple of one of my god brothers. And I had met him for the first time. And I remember he looked at me. He asked me my name. I told him my name. And he said, "Oh," he said, "you're one of the relics. You're one of the ISKCON relics." I took it as a compliment. He said it in an interesting way, as I was one of the people from the olden days. This was only in the 90s, what to speak of now. 50 years later. This was just 25 years later. They're saying, no, you're one of the relics from the old days. Someone who was past due, had his past due date, but was still around. But again, I took that as being something very kind. We are Prabhupada's disciples. We're his relics. Somehow or other, he's, if you know, in Catholicism, the Catholics, they have relics in the church. Some of you may know, many of you won't, but I grew up a Catholic boy. So we had different relics in the church. You had first class relic, second class relic, and third class. All wonderful. So even third class relics is just something that was touched. So like they would say to Jesus, we would say to Prabhupada, just like Prabhupada's chadars, Prabhupada's clothing, all these things are relics of Prabhupada. But Prabhupada's greatest work were his disciples, just like Bhakti Charu Maharaj. His whole life now is all he's thought. 20 years later, he was still thinking, wanted to create this facility this week. He said, I'll put up, he said, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, he said. He said, I'll put up the first $100,000. So he was very serious. He wasn't just throwing an idea out. It was something he wanted to do. This was just less than a year ago. Of course, since that time, so many things have happened now. Maharaj also, when I was there at Janmashtami time for a week, of course, I would sit at his lectures. He would come and he would attend all the lectures I gave. He was so happy to hear about Prabhupada from me as I was speaking. He thanked me. He said some very nice things to me about my speaking. And I told him that I wanted to start traveling again more and more. I was leaving Hawaii, where I had been for 5 years. And I said I wanted to make a base in India, move to India, and start to travel. And I said, for the last few years, I said, I've been wanting to go to South Africa. I wanted to go. I had some requests, but I didn't know anyone there. I couldn't put anything together. And as soon as I said it to him, he said, oh, he said, I know, I've been there many times. He said, I have disciples there. I have many things going on. He said, let me make some arrangements. He said, let me send out some emails. He said, and I'll start it. And just before this, my wife and I, we both went at the very beginning of December. We went to South Africa. Thanks to Maharaj, he helped arrange the trip. We spent 2.5 months traveling to all the different temples in South Africa. Went to Johannesburg, went to Durban, went to Cape Town, little satellite temples outside of Johannesburg and Sandton. Went to Mauritius, spent almost a month in Mauritius. We went to Nairobi, Mombasa. But all of it happened because Maharaj helped organize it for me. And from there, everything went very nicely. So Bhakti Charu Maharaj has always been someone who is, to everyone I've seen, but to me, he's always given me a lot of help and attention. And I find that these devotees who have this association with Prabhupada, this very personal association like he did, like myself, like Ambarish Prabhu, he very much, because of Prabhupada, we have a very strong brotherly feeling towards one another. Yet we share something. Did I do that or? No, okay. So of course, I have to thank Maharaj for his help at this time in my life. So many years go by, and I see without the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, without the mercy of my god brothers and god sisters, Krishna consciousness can be very difficult. Prabhupada said, actually, he said, Krishna consciousness is easy. He said, determination is difficult. I was just watching the video. I've seen it a few times now, just before Bhakti Charu Maharaj left India, saying how eager he was to preach, to go back to the West and do preaching work. This is a devotee. This is the way devotee is. He accepts challenges. He's not afraid of the difficulties. This was always Prabhupada's mood. And you'll find that those who have had this association with Prabhupada, they understand we have one business. As Prabhupada's disciples, so many things we do, so many services we can have. How we know there's 9 processes of devotional service. But anyone that was with Prabhupada and can understand Prabhupada's mood, his mood was one, preaching. If he couldn't preach, he would say what? Prabhupada quotes his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that it requires life to preach. And at the same time, it's preaching gives life. So even we have this facility now, just like here today, so many devotees on this Zoom meeting here, the facility is there. But that feeling to want to go out, just like when I was here with Prabhupada, I said September 1977. Try to imagine, Prabhupada came here towards the end of May, ready to come to Vrindavan to leave his body. That was May. June, July, August, September, October. Through those months, Prabhupada's condition worsened. He lost so much weight, so much energy. And when I was here, he started to feel a little better. They were giving him some Ayurvedic medicine, very strong medicine. And what did he do? He said he wanted to travel to the West to preach. He was practically not even there. His body was almost non-existent. It was just that soul, the spirit in there. And he just wanted to continue to do his service, and he made an arrangement to go to England. This all happened very quickly. At the time, the devotees that were with him, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Upendra was there, others were there, Abhiram. Many of them couldn't get visas for England at that time. But Prabhupada was determined. Even Tamal Krishna Maharaj wasn't going to be able to go without going through some loopholes. And Prabhupada looked at Maharaj and said, "It's okay." He said, "Srutakirti's here. He can go with me." So I had been with him for 2 years. So he said, he said, "Srutakirti can come." And of course, they all went. They made arrangements within the next week. They got the visas they needed. They got the tickets, and Prabhupada went to England. Of course, he came back to Vrindavan a short time later. But that mood that Prabhupada had that's the mood of his disciples. That's the mood of his followers. We have one business. I've told this stories being with Prabhupada when a few different times when he wasn't feeling well. The one was just in 1973. It was in June of 1973, and Prabhupada was here. And again, he had been ill. So at that time, he was in Calcutta, and he was getting offers to go to different places. So we were all very concerned about how Prabhupada felt. And we just wanted the devotees, when Prabhupada wasn't well, of course, they always saw Prabhupada needs to rest. So Prabhupada at that time had gotten an invitation from Madhvisa Maharaj in Australia to come to Australia. And he got an invitation from Swamitha Prabhu to go to England for a Rath Yatra festival, 3-cart Rath Yatra festival in London, right through the most famous streets of London, ending at Trafalgar Square. So both these invitations were there, and Prabhupada's in Calcutta, his secretary's there, others are there, Swamis are there, with Gargamuni, Bhavananda, Tamal Krishna Maharaj. All these people were there because Prabhupada was there. But he was resting from what was also at that time a serious illness. And he called his disciples into his room. Disciples, these were all his leading disciples at the time, mostly all sannyasis, GBCs, temple presidents. And he said, so I have an invitation to go to Australia for the next week or two. There was a nice cottage by the beach in Perth, could rest there. He said, and I have an invitation to go to London for Rath Yatra festival. So he called them all into the room and he said to them, so you decide. He says, you speak amongst yourselves and you decide what you think is best I should do. And then he had them leave the room. So this was in the morning around 10 o'clock. So then an hour later, Prabhupada calls me in, it's time for massage. So now I'm massaging Prabhupada. And I'm massaging his back. And he said, so Srutakirti, he said, what is your opinion? Should I go to Australia to rest? Or should I go to Rath Yatra in London? And by this time, I had already been with him just over a year. And I understood exactly what Prabhupada was going to do. And I didn't offer my opinion. I offered his opinion. I said, Prabhupada, I said, I think you're going to go to London to Rath Yatra festival where you'll be speaking to thousands of people that come to Rath Yatra. So Prabhupada said, you have good understanding. So then he had his lunch and took a nap. And after lunch, he called his disciples back into the room. He had told them to have their meeting. He said, so you've had a meeting? Yes, Prabhupada, yes. He said, so what have you decided? And sannyasi looked at Prabhupada. Prabhupada, you should go to Australia and rest. Prabhupada just shook his head. He said, we'll go to London, he said, for Rath Yatra. So this was Prabhupada's mood. 2 years later, the same thing happened. It was a year later in 74 when Prabhupada was here in Vrindavan. And he started to recover. He had been very ill. And that was when 24-hour kirtan began in the temples. By Prabhupada's recommended, he said we could chant in the temple. So it was that time, September 1974, when they started chanting 24-hour kirtan in the different temples. Then again, he recovered. He went to Delhi and he got offered an invitation to go to Kurukshetra to speak. And he did the same thing. He called these same men into the room a year later, same sannyasis. He said, so I can go do this engagement, Kurukshetra. It was like a 3-hour drive in the car. He said, it'll be uncomfortable. He said, it's hot out. It was summertime. He said, but invitation is there. He said, so. And then as Prabhupada was talking about it, he said, well, he said, it won't be too difficult. He said, we can leave very early in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. He said, it's still cool out. We can have breakfast. This was the very first trip. This was the trip to Kurukshetra. He said, we can have breakfast along the way. We'll stop along the way, then we'll get there. He called him in. He said the same thing. Tell me what you think. He said, he didn't say on the spot. He said, you go discuss it. You discuss whether I should go to this or not. Prabhupada always knew what he was going to do. He didn't require us to make a decision. The very opposite. So he said, you discuss. And we sent him out of the room. Same thing. Same thing happened. I'm giving Prabhupada massage. Srutakirti, what is your opinion? Should I go to this program? I said, Prabhupada, this opportunity to preach. I said, you'll do it. Prabhupada just smiled. I said, yeah. He said, you understand. So that's what happens when you're with Prabhupada. This is what happened to Bhakti Charu Maharaj. It's one thing we read Prabhupada's books, we chant our rounds, we go to the programs, but when you spend your time with the personality, Prabhupada would say the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. That was Prabhupada. It was servitor. Say, serving God. You see their business. They have no other business in this world. Prabhupada had no other business in this world other than to spread Krishna consciousness. From the moment Bhakti Charu Maharaj came, all he wanted to do was to preach. He was okay, we're back. Sorry, some call just came in. So from the very beginning, he wanted to just fill Prabhupada's desires, fulfill Prabhupada's desires. I always thought he was very innocent, Maharaj. He told me one story when he was in Vrindavan. He had felt so guilty. He went to Prabhupada with it. He said, because he was in Maya. I said, what was that, Maharaj? He said, I would go to the sweet shops and buy sweets. He said, they weren't offered to the deities. He said, I go to the sweet shop. So he told Prabhupada. He felt so bad. He told Prabhupada about his buying sweets. I said, Maharaj, is that the worst thing you've ever done? I said, you're very good. Prabhupada told him here, of course, we're in Vrindavan, everything is prasadam. Everything, this is our license here in Vrindavan. Everything is prasadam in Vrindavan. So anyway, now, of course, we can see this is a devotee. You can see who is devotee by how many people care. All over the world, everyone cares so deeply for Maharaj because he cares. He's very personal. Again, when we were in Atlanta and we're sitting at nice room, maybe none of you have been, Atlanta is a nice room, a big table, like conference table, you could fit 12 people around it. So we would all have prasadam in this room some of the days. Bhakti Charu Maharaj and then his godbrothers. There were sometimes anywhere from 4 to 8 of us that would come along over the days. And of course, as sometimes happens, he had his disciples there, a few ladies there, they were cooking. So they were cooking all these preparations up for him and everything. And he's sitting at the head of the table and we're sitting there alongside of him. And of course, they start bringing him the preparations, and they bring him this preparation, and this preparation. And this went on for about 5 minutes or so. But not, the rest of us are all just sitting there, nothing in front of us. So finally they bring another, and he just looks at them. He said, what am I supposed to do? He said, I can't eat. He said, no one else has anything. He said, why do you keep bringing me things? He says, bring them to my godbrothers. He said, bring them the prasadam. He said, so we can eat together. So this is business as the devotee, is to always to know what to do, how to be, how to conduct ourselves around others. Etiquette, it's something Maharaj has very nicely, is Vaishnava etiquette. He understands, because he's a Vaishnava. We can have all the classes in the world, but unless one comes to the point of being devotee, understanding what it means to be a devotee, learning from a devotee, as I said, like Maharaj did, like we had the opportunity being with Prabhupada, seeing how a devotee deals in every situation. Prabhupada, when we were with him, any one of us, he made us feel special. He'd give us all the time in the world. He'd sit with you. If you were in his room, he could sit, he could talk 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. He would never send you out of the room. I have something else to do. He made you feel important. This I feel that I see these, I'm mentioning these because I see these qualities with Maharaj. He genuinely cares for others. This is, of course, why he went out. He went back to the USA because he saw he has so much service to do, to go to other places, not just stay there in Ujjain. What is the latest? I didn't see anything this morning. What was the latest report on Maharaj? Yes?
You can read from WhatsApp.
What happened here? Okay. No, I was just asking you, Prabhu, what is the latest? What is the latest information on Bhakti Charu Maharaj?
For today's morning information is, I can read. It says the medical team has reviewed Maharaj's progress for last 12 hours. Maharaj continues to be in the ventilator and is stable. Maharaj has had a scan and it will help us to guide further continued management. And Maharaj developed some infection, and the doctors are saying the infection remains a concern and treatment has been redefined to deal with that infection.
Mm. Does anyone have any, I see a very large group here. Anyone have any questions? Any questions I could answer? Hmm. That's Samir. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I am from Delhi, associated with ISKCON Shipyard Temple, and I have a question. How to keep the momentum going on? Momentum, like enthusiasm. Because whenever we chant Hare Krishna, it's good. Then we leave for the day, then all Maya caught up.
That's what, as I said, Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness, he said, is easy. He said determination is difficult. So that's what you're speaking about, determination. We know, we see these videos. There's one.
Yes.
There's one video I see over and over again. It took place in Australia. When Prabhupada was in Australia, they did evening programs. Many outsiders would come. And at the end of the class, there'd be many questions. There was more questions would be asked there than most of the temples I went to. So of course, the one young brahmachari, you could see with shaved head, everything. We were all young, new devotees. He asked Prabhupada how long it takes to become Krishna conscious. You've seen that video? You may have seen. So what did Prabhupada respond? A moment. He said, just a moment, a second, one can become Krishna conscious. It's all. One devotee, I was on a morning walk, a brahmachari asked Prabhupada, as he was getting into the car, after the hour morning walk, he never asked him the question. As Prabhupada's getting into the car, he finally saw his last opportunity to ask the question, Prabhupada, how do I become Krishna conscious? Prabhupada's sitting in the car, in the back seat of the car, and I'm ready to close the door. And Prabhupada just looked at him, and he said one word, and then he turned away, started looking forward. And then I shut the door, went in the other side, sat down, and the car took off. So Prabhupada told him in one word, desire. We have to, I know myself, my natural inclination, especially going through this lockdown, you become lazy. We become lazy, we become complacent. So we have to push ourselves. This again is what I saw with Prabhupada over and over again. It's when we want to be Krishna conscious, we see the whole world is struggling. The whole world for one of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada's desire was just to give that to the world. So this is what, hopefully in association of devotees, this is what wears off, is that enthusiasm. Devotee means enthusiastic. If there's not enthusiasm, then Prabhupada would say, what did he say? If one is not happy, he said, then he's not devotee. As soon as one is devotee, they actually understand the position as part and parcel of Krishna, servant of Krishna, friend of Krishna, lover of Krishna, whatever it may be. That's the source of our life. That is our very life. And when you have the most wonderful thing, you just want to give it to others. So this you see with the devotees, the advanced devotees, they're always eager to give Krishna to others. Prabhupada said, just like 16 rounds. He said, in the beginning, we're chanting 16 rounds. He said, and we have to push ourselves to do it. He said, but gradually, taste should develop. One doesn't think I have to chant 16 rounds. One's very happy to chant. There's 16 rounds. The material world is a difficult place. Being, like I said, I joined the temple in 1971. So 12 years later, I left the shelter of ISKCON. I had like the official, at that time I had been living in an apartment in Los Angeles, even as a grahasta. I had 2 children, a wife, I had service connected. But all of a sudden I had 3 children, needed to take care of them, didn't want to be a beggar in ISKCON, trying to figure out how they're going to take care of me. Another thing, when you're trained up by Prabhupada, you don't think of what you can get from spiritual life. You're always thinking, what can you give? It's not, like I said, when we became devotees, us Westerners, we left everything. We left our homes, our very comfortable homes, our cars, our colleges, whatever it may be. We realized none of this was giving us happiness. So it comes down to understanding, to see that no matter how hard I try, there's no enjoyment in this world. And if we can learn it through the eyes of Shastra, through Guru and Shastra, that's very wonderful. That's intelligence. But if that intelligence isn't there, Krishna is also very kind. He can, over a course of time, he can take everything away from you. It's what happened to me. 1984, I was out of the temple. I had to figure out how to survive, got a job So many distractions were there from what I considered my business, my life. But just being a grahasta, also our business is take care of family, raise your children as nice devotees. So somehow or other, whatever our position is, we have to hold on to those, Prabhupada calls the routine program. Little program in the morning, worshiping Tulsi Devi, offering prasadam, little artik. Prabhupada told me, read 15 minutes. You can't do anything else. You read 15 minutes from my books in a day. So all these things, they're our food. That's our spiritual. It's all prasadam. It's all our spiritual food to help keep us enlivened, to understand what our business is. And then, of course, you have these situations when you see your spiritual master going through this, we become more serious. This is what Prabhupada always tried to do when we were young, was explain how serious our situation is. I was talking with some of my godbrothers, Guru, Sannyasi, godbrothers, and others. You know, like I say, I'll be 69, and I was born 1951, so it was 6 years after World War II. I've gone through my whole life as an American without any real struggles. No wars, no fighting, no hunger, even no poverty. Even my father had died, my mother was working, she got supplement. Everything was there. There was no strife. Now look at this world. Look what happened in the course of just weeks of a month. The entire world has been turned upside down. This was a long time coming. We've, like I say, for 70 years, I've had nothing like this happen in my life. Everything's been easy. If I wanted to travel to a temple somewhere, just get in touch with authorities, could travel. Now, I'm lucky if I can go outside the MVT gate to cross the street to go see the deities. For a few days, they let us do it. Then they close the temple. Then he opens the temple. Then he closes the temple. And all rightfully so. It's not bad management. It's trying to manage through this difficult time. So we don't know how to become serious on our own. Krishna will make you become serious. Krishna can take everything. I'm here in Vrindavan. I'm not even living in my own place. I have no home. I have nothing of my own at this time of my life. My wife and I can see I'm literally at Krishna's mercy. And if we can understand we're always at Krishna's mercy, and we can accept that, then life could be very nice. That's what Prabhupada said, Vaikuntha means with no anxiety. Right? Vaikuntha means no anxiety. So the only way to come to that point is to understand Krishna's controlling everything. And even myself, I'm not just trying to be devotee, trying to be Vaishnava. I can see how the Lord takes care of me. I can see how Prabhupada takes care of me. And the more you see that, then the more you can direct your energy to where it should go. Like that. But we always have to push ourselves. Prabhupada would push himself. One night he called me in 8 o'clock at night. He would eat at night. Sometimes he would ask for puris, sabji, always had his hot milk. But the one night he called me in and he said, tonight make me muri, puffed rice. He said, because last night I had puri and sabji, he said, and it was difficult to get up to translate. Difficult means difficult to get up at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning to start his translation. So even he would make adjustments in order to do his service. So we just be practical. Prabhupada was practical. He would say common sense. Krishna consciousness is common sense. We know what we need to do. Everything is there for us. We have the books. We have so many wonderful personalities, sadhus. We have the spiritual master showing us. So we have to take seriously. And now it should be, like they say, now preaching is very good now. I have devotees telling me, people are, you can see online, you can start so many programs, so many classes with people now. People need an alternative. They need to know what's going on. Hare Krishna. We have a Bhuvan.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. There are a couple of questions on the chat, Prabhuji. I will read. One question is Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dhanat Pranam. Sometimes, this is from Sita Thakurani Mataji. She says, sometimes Krishna doesn't respond to our prayers and we lose faith for good time to come. Whether this time our prayers will be heard or not, how to keep our faith strong?
Krishna hears all our prayers. Of course, we know Prabhupada would even say, he would use the criminals praying, please don't let me get caught. And the people in their own, please don't let me be robbed. So prayers are there. We have to understand Krishna knows. For a devotee, Krishna takes charge. He knows what's best. Sometimes we could even want things. I've gone through this myself. As they say, looking back through experience. I was with Prabhupada for 16 months. And then I left, I got married. And everything was a great struggle because it wasn't what I was supposed to do at the time. It's what I wanted to do. But it wasn't what I was advised to do by Prabhupada. Prabhupada's, like we say, servitor God. Huh? Prabhupada with me, and I can see with others, he never forced anything. Our business is, we always have to make a choice. Krishna consciousness is voluntary. Love is voluntary. Krishna can't force you to love him. We have to, by the mercy of the spiritual master, by our service, our sincerity, and basically just by the grace of Guru, we develop love of Krishna. But without that, material desires are always going to be there. And so we have different, I mentioned going to South Africa. There's some devotees there writing so many rules and regulations, so many ways to detach. But see, Prabhupada didn't teach us a process of detachment. He taught us a process of attachment. Our whole business is to become attached to Krishna. And then automatically material desire fall away. It's not the other way around. Prabhupada said this false renunciation is not how we do things. How to remain enthusiastic. I find the best way to remain enthusiastic, of course, Prabhupada's books are there, but I think most important really is association. Prabhupada would say association. We have to associate with those who inspire us, those that help us be enthusiastic, those that can make us enthusiastic. Like I say, when I was in Atlanta, just being with Bhakti Charu Maharaj, it was enlivening, to see someone with ideas of how to spread Krishna consciousness, how to help Prabhupada's society, how to work within ISKCON. One thing I admire so much about Maharaj is he's Prabhupada man. Everything he does, he wants to do for Prabhupada. He knows everything is coming. For us in ISKCON, everything comes through Prabhupada's mercy, through Prabhupada's desire. From the very beginning, when he established back in 1965, 1966, but even after his leaving, his presence is always there within ISKCON society. One of the things we're going to have to learn, all of us, as we did way back in the 70s, we always imagined Prabhupada was just always going to be there. He was going to be there until he was 100 years old. He just had to be. He was always telling us the very opposite. Any moment we can leave. We have to become strong. This situation never changes. This is, I always find it curious, the use of that word wonderful. Growing up speaking English, wonderful always has the connotation of it's wonderful, marvelous, terrific, beautiful. But of course, Yudhisthira Maharaj uses that term, Prabhupada uses that word in a very different way. In the Bhagavatam, quoting, most wonderful thing is we see all around us, everyone is leaving, but somehow or other, we don't think it will ever happen. This, of course, is also natural because we are eternal. Actually, there is no leaving, but from these bodies there is. And this was the one lesson Prabhupada gave over and over again, is to try to prepare ourselves for this situation. And part of that preparation is also seeing others, our family, loved ones, however it is, people, friends, acquaintances, everyone goes. To this day, it's still a difficult concept for me to accept. Just the other day, last week, you said I lived at Bhaktivedanta Manor. There I have a god sister, Jesta. She had a daughter, Dharma. She had a seizure and died. She had been sickly, had an autoimmune deficiency. And she struggled for decades. At 37 years old, she just left. I just talked to her mother over the last few days. I've talked to her a little bit. But she's surviving by support from her god brothers or god sisters and all the friends of Dharma. Because whenever it happens, never expected, never wanted. We have to see the writing on the wall. We need to become serious. This is what a devotee does. I always say when I hear Prabhupada speak, I hear two things stand out for me very much. The first thing is the urgency in hearing Prabhupada speaking. He not just talking, he's telling us what's happening. He's telling us what we need to do. So you hear that urgency, that message, knowing anytime he could also be leaving us. And of course, the other wonderful thing you hear when Prabhupada speaks is his love for Krishna. All he talks about is Krishna. How we should serve Krishna, love Krishna, be with Krishna, everything about Krishna. So this is devotee. So these devotees we need to associate with. That's how we get enthusiastic. That's how I survive off of these devotees' enthusiasm. I survive by remembering Srila Prabhupada, his enthusiasm, his determination to help us. So this is our business. We need, this whole scenario now is actually, in many ways, is very good. We have to come together. You can see devotees coming together more than ever before through the internet, getting association, developing ways of being enlivened, being enthusiastic, preaching. If we do these things, we'll always feel close. So I said, I feel closer to Prabhupada now than at times when I was his servant. It's a question of consciousness. So Prabhupada will always be there for us. Bhakti Charu Maharaj is always going to be there for his disciples. It's the way spiritual life works. It's not the same. It's not material. He's there. Prabhupada is there. You call on him. You pray to him. How those prayers are answered, that's up to the higher powers. But we always take shelter of the devotees. We always take shelter of Guru and Krishna, all the acharyas, the Bhagavatam. This is our shelter. And this is how we remain enthusiastic.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one question has come that this is from Bhuvan Moini Mataji. Saying, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. You said Prabhupada knew everything, whatever is going on. So my question is, does Guru knows what is going to happen? Did our Guru Maharaj knew what is going to happen? I read a quote of Srila Prabhupada that Guru knows only those things that Krishna wants him to know. So why doesn't Krishna give him any indication? Krishna says, just come to me, I will take all your sins. So why is Guru Maharaj taking our sins?
Okay. Hare Krishna. Very nice questions. Of course, Prabhupada said, he was asked on the morning walk, does pure devotee know everything? Does a guru know everything? He said, only Krishna knows everything. Of course, the guru or the devotee, he knows whatever Krishna wants him to know. Imagine Prabhupada with his disciples before him, hundreds of disciples in the room giving class. Many times disciples would say to me, when Prabhupada looks at me, he sees all of my sins. He sees all these things. And I was saying, no, Prabhupada sees devotee. He sees all your good qualities. Guru, pure devotee, he's seeing Krishna everywhere. Prabhupada showed us how to see Krishna in everything, every leaf, every fragrant flower. He said, that's Krishna. That scent is Krishna. All the devotee can know everything. Like we say, Prabhupada had visions. Govinda Dasi is talking so much about things Prabhupada said early on in the 60s about all these things that are happening, how these things would be coming to pass in 50 years or so. So these things are going on. Just like Prabhupada again, if you would have seen Prabhupada in 1974, 1967, we know he had heart attacks on the boat. He had a stroke, 1967. 1974, we were all chanting 24-hour kirtans. When one comes to this world, whatever his business is to come here, just like we say Prabhupada was Shaktavash avatar. It didn't mean everything was easy for Srila Prabhupada. We know when he came to America, he said he had no one. He was alone. He said, I was never alone. I was always with my Guru Maharaj. He said, but he was alone with no help. We could think he was pure devotee. Why didn't Krishna make it easy for him? Why did he have to get ill? Why did he have to have heart attacks on the boat? Accepting this body, automatically things will happen as we take on this material body. In Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says in one purport that the pure devotee is unaffected by the threefold miseries. It doesn't say the threefold miseries aren't there. Threefold miseries, they exist here in this material world. You take a body, they're going to affect you. Prabhupada was bitten by mosquitoes. Why did they bite Prabhupada? He was a pure devotee. Because he came to this place to preach Krishna consciousness. So that's what you accept. So these things are there just by taking the body. But the devotee, he's not affected by it. It means whatever goes on, his consciousness is single. It's singular. It's just to Krishna, no other place. And whatever situation Krishna puts them in, they accept that situation. There's no complaining. This is the amazing consciousness of the pure devotee. You read Prabhupada's books, he'll say, heaven or hell, doesn't matter. You can put me in the most hellish condition. Just don't give me forgetfulness of you. That's all devotee wants. Whatever condition he's in, he wants to remember Krishna. And if he can remember Krishna, he's happy, even in the most hellish conditions. I was telling in a class last week, Bhakti Maharaj, when he was in his final weeks, I saw him in Gita Nagari. Many of us went there to visit him one time. And he said the most painful thing, he had, of course, stage 4 cancer, lymphatic cancer. His bones were breaking. He was in intense pain. But he said the most painful thing was forgetting Krishna. He said that was his realization from all the pain. He said, I was in so much pain. He said the body had so much pain. He said that he realized that he had forgot Krishna. And when he came to that realization, he said that was the most painful thing, was forgetting Krishna. For a devotee, there is no pain other than forgetting Krishna. Always being with Krishna, then the devotee is happy. Because he understands this body is just facility to do service. And he just requests, just wherever you put me next life, just please don't let me forget you. Let me do some service. This is the devotee's mood. It's advanced stage, but it's there. This is what we pray for, to come to this situation. Prabhupada left all of us as children. Think back what happened. Why we say the same thing, same questions are there. I was 26 years old. My godbrothers, Rameshwar, others, they were initiating people at 27, 26, 28 years old. No one had any idea what was happening after Prabhupada left. But still, that time came. He delivered the message. Why did he give us all those books? He knew from the very beginning his business was to put everything down in print, because he's not going to be here forever. It's just the reality in this material world. He was here. A 13-year-old girl came into his room in Vrindavan, here at Krishna Balaram, with her mother. She was dying. 13-year-old girl. Her mother brought her in to see Prabhupada. No one knew what Prabhupada was going to say. Prabhupada looked at her and said, death will come at any moment for anyone. He wasn't sentimental with her. He said, it's very fortunate you're here in Vrindavan. You know what's going to happen. This harsh reality, this material world is a very harsh place. If everything's going nice, it's going to get taken away. I saw that. You said I was at the manor. I lived there for 10 years. I was married, a devotee, English devotee, and everything was fine. And then she died. So I realized this is material life. If everything's nice, it gets taken away from you, you suffer. If it's not nice, you're always suffering. Some people will tell you they're married or say every day's a struggle, they struggle. So no matter what, the end result in the material world is struggle. is disappointment. Our only way to solve is we become Krishna conscious. And if you really want to feel close to your spiritual master, you have to serve his mission. This will be the only thing that can make anyone feel better, is to know that they're carrying on their work. Just like Bhakti Charu Maharaj, it'll be the same thing. If he's pleased, then you'll become satisfied. If my business is to please Prabhupada, if I please him, then I feel satisfied. I feel connected to him. It's certainly a different kind of connection than Vapu, Bani and Vapu. But Vapu always goes in this material world. It's always going to leave us. We all pray, and everything goes nicely. Maharaj will be back on his feet in the next week or so. Everyone will be able to take a breath, to start breathing again and continue in your service. But the best thing we can do for devotees, for the pure devotees, is always just to serve them, to serve their mission. And that's how we can stay close. And we have to take all of that, all those feelings, separation, and serve harder.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Okay, I see that. Thank you
It's
so much.
already 9:15. Do we have time, Prabhuji, for one more question? Or
Yes.
how are you placed?
I'm reading it here, yes. So
Oh.
for the disciple who have had close association with spiritual master, it's easy for them to always remain conscious of the spiritual master and his teaching. But for those who didn't have the close association, it's difficult. That's why you see, like Siddhanta Prabhu, what does he have? He has hundreds of Prabhupada's disciples, all telling their stories, being with Srila Prabhupada personally. I think these are very valuable. These talks are very valuable. Like I say, we can all read. We read Prabhupada's books. You read them, I read them, this person read. We all come to our own conclusions. We all interpret it in certain ways. It's why we need the devotees, pure devotee, to explain things to us. But hearing from those, if you didn't have the close association, just like with my book, I here and there I'll always get someone will write me and tell me how much more they feel closer to Prabhupada because of what I wrote. So it's just me describing my time with him. These stories, Siddhanta, you see hundreds of devotees, you sit and listen to devotees talk about Prabhupada. There's so much to be gained. And I think a feeling of closeness is there. Ultimately, all these things are temporary. We're all going to be together. Prabhupada said in the spiritual world, ISKCON will be there in the spiritual world. We'll recognize one another, whatever form we might be in. We'll recognize each other from the past. So everything will be there. It's just time that's separating. And although this time can seem very, very long, the older you get, you'll see time literally flies. I always use the example of the hourglass. You all know what an hourglass is, with the sand going through. So if you have a big hourglass with an hour's worth of sand, if you look at it at the beginning, you don't see anything. You see a little bit of sand going through, but nothing's moving. It looks like it's standing still, even though sand is going through. But as it gets close to the end, you can see that same sand going through the same amount of time. It looks like it's going through much, much faster. I've seen my own life is like that. 69 years old, I don't know how I got here. But now I see every day. We've been locked up here for 3 months, literally 3 months. in one sense, it's a long time, but in another way, it just flies by. And life is always doing that. And this again is why Prabhupada always say we have to take serious. Look at Prahlad Maharaj telling 5-year-olds to get serious. Stop your playing. This is devotee. This is the devotee because they do see. They can see past, present, and future. Prabhupada was always telling us, get serious. This is going to come to an end. Your so-called civilization. They're killing millions and millions of animals every day, millions of them. He said, karma is going to come. The karma has come. It's just the beginning of what's going on. We not only need to get together, Krishna conscious, do our service, serve Maharaj, serve Prabhupada. We have to get serious. Things are going to get worse. You're just at the beginning of difficult times. Things are in this material world are very bad. We're very fortunate. And we have our places to go. We have our temples. We have our God brothers. We have the Swamis. We have so many things to help us. But we have to take it serious. The fun life, the fun, easygoing life that I was raised on throughout my whole life, it's no more. It's no more. So we need to get serious in our Krishna consciousness. And this will all be over very soon for everyone. And then the Prabhupada said, give this one life to Krishna. That's what you see devotees do. No other business. I saw like I say, when I was at then, I saw Maharaj, all he does, he's giving darshans, giving classes, giving darshans. That's all he does is try to help people. So this is it. The more we do that, then the closer we can feel. But it's not our business it's not our business to try to understand everything that's happening. Prabhupada would say, just understand, serve Krishna. That's all. He would say, my only question I ever asked my guru was, how can I serve you? All these other questions, he would say when it was Gopal Krishna Maharaj, his wife, his ex-wife, Akiyani, she would write Prabhupada so many questions in letters. And finally, the one letter he wrote back said, you go back to the spiritual world, all your questions will be answered. This is all we care about. We want to get out of this place. So everything is there for us to do it. All information is there. Just know that Maharaj is in a good place. I might have mentioned, it was, 3 years ago, almost exactly 3 years ago, I had a seizure that lasted for 15 minutes. It almost left me dead. I was right at the point of death, and I anyway, came back and created some bodily damage, this and that and the other thing. But for some reason, it wasn't my time. So now for me too, I see I need to be more serious. You'll see when Maharaj comes back, he's going to be more empowered. He's going to be doing more. He's not going to be doing less. He's going to be seeing, I have business to do. This is it. We have our business to do. Yes, thousands of people counting on him. And he'll be there for everyone. Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you so very much.
I hope I was okay. I was kind of all over the place, but I hope it was enlivening for some, helpful. I'm confident Maharaj will be okay. He is okay. Krishna's taking care. Prabhupada's taking care of him. We have to understand whatever happens, somehow or other, it's always for the best. Everything always works out for the best. whatever sacrifices we make is always for our benefit. I see my time with Prabhupada, as I said some time ago, it was like being in quarantine when you were with Prabhupada. I was in my room 24 hours a day. But I just see from the little time I was with Prabhupada, he's taken care of me my whole life. And I'm confident that he'll continue to take care of me just because I did a little bit of service. So this is our position. Krishna doesn't forget. Spiritual master doesn't forget our service. So we should all feel confident. And also our business, these things happen so that we become more attached to the pure devotee, become more serious ourselves. So if nothing else, we should take it. Krishna has given us opportunity that we need to become more serious. So this is the opportunity at this time. Can take nothing for granted in this world. But just know Krishna is always there, and Guru is always there. Okay.
Hare
Anyway,
Krishna. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you,
Yes, no,
everyone.
Yes, we are very grateful to you. And it was spiritually enlivening and nourishing for all of us. There are hundreds of thank yous on the chat for you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
And we just, all of us, we would chant one loud Hare Krishna Mahamantra to thank you and also wish you a very happy birthday, which is tomorrow.
Thank you.
Saying it today. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.
Hare Hare. Thank you all very much.